We just had kind of a mind-blowing panel session about the future of comps with some legends in the snowboard game. Super tough act to follow. Good luck. But we're now going to talk about ski design and ski manufacturing. These folks have a lot to live up to right now. Luke Jacobson, CEO of Moment Skis, and Ben Anderson, founder of Icelantic. Good cheering section. That was an impressive cheering section. This is gonna be a free-flowing conversation, I think. There's a couple questions that I very much have wanted to get to today. I know Luke has some things he wants to talk about specifically on the ski design front, and so he's gonna give you a master class in that, ladies and gentlemen. And then we're gonna get to your questions. So we have a clear agenda, that is it. Let's do the hard question first. Or at least it's always a hard one for me. Talk a little bit about what is Moment Skis, give us a bit of the backstory, the history, and we'll have then Ben do the same with Icelantic.
Okay, Moment has been around since 2003. Made our first pair then. Made in the USA. We have the largest ski manufacturing facility in the USA. We are a North American free ride company. We make a lot of wide skis, starting to make some narrower, more carver skis. We don't do any race stuff, and we just focus on mainly a lot of skis that work on the west coast of the United States because that's where we're from. But as the brand has grown over 20 years, we've definitely diversified the shapes and styles that we create. It was definitely started because back then there was a need for differences, different styles of skis. You know, twin tips didn't really exist. There were a couple. There wasn't really rocker. There weren't fat skis, and that's when we really got into it and wanted to push and evolve the sport. And that's what we continue to do today: is to continue to try to make skis that are more fun on snow.
Well done. Did you say where you're based?
Reno, Nevada, is where we make all our skis. I don't think I said that.
I don't think you did.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Ben, your turn.
Same story. No, pretty much. I mean, the timeline's pretty much the same. You know, I started building skis in my parents' garage in like 2002, 2003. Did that for a few years, and 2006 was our first year going to market. Instead of starting on factory, one of the things I realized is that I'm really allergic to fiberglass. So it was a tough hobby to have. So, when we were getting ready to go to market, I knew that it wasn't something that I was going to continue to build myself and, needed to outsource. And growing up in Colorado, I grew up in Evergreen, Colorado, so just west of Denver a little bit. And growing up here, like through the late 90s, I knew the Never Summer brand, Never Summer Snowboards. It was kind of in their launch time and their heyday. And I just knew the quality of product they were making and, the factory being in Denver. And I was like, this would be a perfect partnership, to get them to make our skis. I was kind of looking at a couple of the European factories as that opportunity, but, the design and the building and just that process is what I was really passionate about. So I was like, gosh, if we could find a local manufacturer, which there was one, it just would be perfect. So, it took me about a year and a half to convince them to do it. At first they're like, we're content, we're a snowboard business, we have a sustainable business, we don't need to make product for anybody else. And then they started being like a little bit nervous about making skis. They're like, we don't know how our core market's gonna react if they hear that we're making skis, but I was very, I would go down there pretty much once a week and just go knock on their door and, talk to the two brothers, Tim and Tracy, and try to convince them to make them. And after about a year and a half, they, saw what we were doing and decided to partner up with us. And, we've been lucky enough to work in that same factory for the last, 20 years, which is just crazy. It's been that long. So all of our skis, made right in Denver. We have a core group that kind of started the company that is still with us today, which is awesome. And we're based in Golden, Colorado. So the factory's in Denver. We have a retail space and our workspace in Golden. It's been a crazy ride. It's been so fun just to see it continue to come to life and, just continue to stay creative, whether it's through ski design or marketing campaigns or, just how we organize the business, just that creativity and, staying true to it is such a key piece.
Over the last couple of years, we've heard quite a bit in the ski industry, in the bike industry about, and frankly, lots of industries about big disruptions in supply chains and materials and all the rest. And I would love to hear you guys talk a bit about sort of where we are today, if we're still under the like big challenge kind of umbrella on things, if it's gotten better. Where are we at today on the, getting the materials in and costs of these things to actually go build skis?
Yeah.
First.
I'll go.
Hit it.
They're very
So
differential.
that's a big question, because I think we see price and supply chain issues in every industry, like at the grocery store, absolutely everywhere. And I don't have the answers for that. I do want to know where all the workers went. That's really where like the challenge comes from a lot of these things. It's a lot of work though, but like we're out of it. Like things got really crazy during COVID, especially for skiing, because that was one of the only things that we could do. So many people were buying up so much ski gear. We were selling skins to people that didn't have touring bindings. They're like, I'm just gonna go shuffle up the mountain. It was absolutely mayhem. Like everybody just wanted to get out there during the COVID days. It was really bad. Like, but it was really good for business too. And then it was like, bike has seen it too. And like bike just was like, oh, it's gonna be like this forever. And now it's like way too much stuff. It's not that bad in skiing. Like I think people have like, most of the ski brands have definitely like they pump the brakes and they go, okay, this was like a unique scenario in history, but it did open up the doors to a lot more people skiing. So like for brands like us, I think we're always like a pretty small market share compared to the big European brands. So we're kind of playing in a different sandbox, so we can always have new consumers in that regard. But as far as like materials go, we had to change the entire way that we structured and purchased things. We used to be able to purchase certain materials at 4 to 6 months at a time, and now I'm buying materials for 12 to 16, 18 months at a time, just because that's what kind of happened during COVID. Like when everybody went out and bought up all the toilet paper, like everybody went out and bought up all the sidewall or bought up all the base or, all these things. And the only way that is going to go back to a normal is if someone starts to chill out, because we have to keep so much raw material on our floor to continually make skis, to keep skis being made every single day, to make the business of the factory make sense. So there's definitely been a huge money shuffle on the business side of it, on how we look at product and how we pick colors or sidewall and how we utilize things and storage space. But things are better now. It's a lot easier to get things. Like people have caught up from like the COVID boom, but it still has, I think, changed the way that we do business, and I would assume the same with you.
Yeah, ditto. I mean, I think really every single material that we use to make skis, there was some issue with getting, whether it was the cost of the shipping. I mean, just in general, the cost to make our skis went up almost $100 a pair, or pretty much $100 a pair. Like our costs went up over those few years. And it's like when you start thinking about that and the compound effects of that while still trying to compete in this industry, it's been pretty difficult. But luckily we've navigated it pretty well. Really getting strategic of the type of materials. How do we store stuff and get stuff in advance so we can prevent these super long timelines that are going out. One of the things that really stuck out one of the years, our biggest challenge was resin and just the glues for the skis. And it had nothing to do really with, I guess it did have to do with demand, but it wasn't even from COVID. It was from that deep freeze in Texas. Remember when like the Texas froze? How that affected the, the adhesive industry was insane. So like that, we had to cancel about 20 to 25% of our production that year, work on finding new, vendors to source this, very specific, formula of resin that we were using. So that was a huge challenge. But, over the last couple of years, like it has, stabilized, we're able to get materials, the production's on a normal cycle now. But our biggest challenge now is, paying a livable wage in Denver. How that is just, continued to increase and then is going to continue to increase. I think that's one of our biggest challenges now is like, how do we not only pay a livable wage, but, give these factory workers a good life and, keep them passionate and proud of what they're making and That's a challenge that we're continuing to deal with and, have longevity. I mean, we've been lucky enough to have a core group at the factory. There's about 50 people that, work on the factory floor itself. And, I'd say 20 to 25 of those people have been there for 20 years, that have been there for a long time and have really mastered the art. But now, like, bringing in new talent or new people to train to get this skill set, it's been so tough. Like, you're paying them a rate that the guy who's been there for 20 years has worked up to, and now it's just a compound effect. So that's definitely been a challenge, and one that we continue to think about. Luckily we're in a fun industry and we sell fun, so it's like, how do we really continue to think differently where it's not always about monetary gain? Obviously you need to have a livable wage, but what are some other ways that we can truly differentiate the experience and what you get when you are working in the Never Summer and Icelantic factory?
Yeah. I like bringing up the livable wage portion of this because, we talk to a whole lot of manufacturers in the ski game and snowboard game and the boot game. And a thing that we constantly hear is there is this pressure from recreational skiers and riders about this stuff is too expensive, right? And there's a lot of other industries where they're like, well, too bad. This is what it costs, because do you want people to be paid well who are building this stuff? And you just said, this stuff just got a whole lot more expensive to make, and yet we are out there rabble-rousing and complaining about these prices. And it's just something that I think it is good for all of us to be mindful of. And I'd love to just hear you respond a little bit to that. Like, look, these are two nice guys. They're not like, yes, let's wring every penny from you motherfucker out there, right? But like, we gotta be a little bit realistic about, do you want the things to be made well? Oh, you do, cool. Do you want the people making it to get a reasonable wage for where they live? Oh, you want that too, cool. Okay, so I think we are pretty guilty of being unreasonable, but I don't know what is to be done here. So, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. I mean, there's been these kind of ceilings in the ski world. You look at almost every other industry, and I mean, prices continue to go and there's not much. And, a lot of it could be, driven by a retail presence, and the retail buyers looking at what they're carrying, how is the consumer going to process this? So, I think it's a pretty interesting challenge to really think about this investment that you're making and what are you purchasing. I think one of the things that we really have to our advantage, both of our brands, is just the quality of the product, the durability of the product. There's so many times I'll see customers out there skiing on a pair of Icelantics that they're 10 plus years old and they are still skiing great. They're having so much fun on them. So I think really when you think about the monetary value of the product that we're making and truly a lot of the products that are out there, any ski company that's making a product and, is successful in this industry is making a good ski. Not every ski is for every person, obviously, but everyone's making a good ski. So, what we really try to pride ourselves on is when you make an investment in buying a pair of Icelantics, it is built to last. You are gonna be able to have this product and ski on it for many years to come. Hopefully you're gonna come back to our brand to reinvest or continue to potentially build a quiver with different skis for different type of conditions. But I think that's one thing to continue to remember is yes, it's getting more and more expensive to to participate in this sport. But when you do make that investment, it's a good long-term investment. And I also think it's our responsibility to continue to think of how do we continue to make it more, just appeal and just more inviting to other customers, to other people, people that can't afford to spend, $800, $900 on a pair of skis. When I think about that, when I look at just being lucky enough to be in this industry and the experiences that I've got to have, for a fraction of the price, I'm like, man, when I really get down to it, if I'm fully investing in this without any sort of benefit, it's a big investment. There's no doubt about it. And that does deter a lot of people out there. So, as a brand for us too, like we're also continuing to think like, how do we continue to make this, like offer this to a broader range of people? Because it's just like I keep saying, it's about having fun. It's getting in the mountains. It's so healthy on every different level. So how do we just make it more attainable? And I think there's a lot of ways that we can do that through kind of recycling our product, like the customers that can afford to buy new pairs of skis every year, every few years, how can we kind of recycle this product and transition it down to, to the next level of the people that can't quite afford that and so on. So, that's something that we're personally just kind of continuing to think about. There's a lot of logistics in that and really strategic ways to think about it, but it's something that is definitely top of mind right now of like, how do we, utilize this long-term durability truly to our advantage compared to it being a deterring factor of like, well, if you had skis that didn't last 10 years, you'd have a return customer faster. So,
yeah, I mean, I get that, but one thing I think like the price of skis have not changed that much in like 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
Was the Shaman around 10 years ago?
yeah.
What did it cost?
Yeah, I don't even know. Probably like $4.99.
Did
I
it
don't
cost
even
that
know.
much?
I don't
'Cause
even know.
like we have like the Wildcat like 10 years ago as a Bibby, it was $6.99, and now
Yeah.
it's $7.79. Like it
Yeah.
hasn't gone up that much, but the cost of doing business has gone up dramatically.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's kind of was.
Oh
my
yeah,
point.
we've just
Yeah.
eaten margin. I mean,
Yeah, like the margin gets smaller for us. Like back then, like we didn't have any margin because we were smaller.
Yeah.
But like what we have to do on our side is like optimize the business and how efficient we make stuff in the factory.
Yeah.
And there's a whole side talk of automation and like, man, the big European factories, those guys are getting crazy with robots. And we've got like little robots. But still, like, it's not the answer. It's not the answer. But yeah, the Armor
Big
factories
robots
are
versus little
scary.
robots.
Yeah, they're
Crazy.
scary what they can do. Like, they just put a ski in one side, it comes out the other in the plastic. It's incredibly impressive what they're doing over there. But that's not what we're really about. But I mean, there's just so many avenues to talk about before answering your core question. Like the overall cost of skis has gone up, and I know when we look at the price of skis every year, like we just did it to figure out next year's pricing, and skiing is such a weird thing. It's not volatile like gas prices. So we have to decide now what the skis are going to cost next year, and we don't understand all the economic factors which will happen between now and when the skis are released. So it's pretty challenging, right? Because you want to be competitive with everyone else, and you need to look at what your costs are, and like some crazy thing can happen in the Middle East, and like the cost of your sidewall material from Austria can go up because like there's like some crazy thing in the cargo shipping world, so it's pretty crazy. And then when winter starts, you're locked into that price all year long. So it's
I know.
Yeah, like,
We did. We did. We changed our price. Like during COVID. I mean, what was happening month after month after month was insane. Like the increases.
Oh, it was
yeah. So
yeah.
we did have to change our prices mid-season, mid-production cycle. One of the years, I can't remember. It was probably 2020 or 2021, but mid-cycle, we're like, we can't just eat all this. It's gonna tank the business. So we had to, pass it on, not 100% of it, but it's like, we need to increase our wholesale costs, $25, which then, increases the retail cost by $50 or whatever it is, knowing that the cost was still, a $50 increase. So it's like we're taking a hit. And the retailer was kind of like where it was built into like they didn't really take a hit, but. Yeah, it's challenging. I also think that everything's resetting right now, like prices in general, like it's not going back down, So like it's definitely in turmoil right now, but I think once it resettles on some levels, I think there's been some shock with the cost of skis going up over the last couple of years, but I think it's going to normalize on some levels. Like I hope it does, but yeah, it's challenging. And it is such a unique industry because there's really not another industry that I can think of that is met with so much resistance. And I'm not even technically from the consumer, but from dealers, consumer, and even just internally, like, wow. I have these thresholds in my head like, oh, over $800, that's crazy. Now it's like, okay, over $900 is crazy. And, now, and that's just continuing to go up. So
I agree with that.
it's going to normalize, yeah.
That's the scary thing too, like because like when we look at the pricing and what it costs to make something, I just know looking at the cost of the ski is like what I want it to cost and the accessibility that I want of the product, but I also need to run a business.
Yeah.
But my personal perception has changed. Like at our factory, we have a factory store, and a couple years ago, like the price of the skis and bindings have gone up a little bit, maybe $75 in the last couple of years since COVID. But I remember before all these big price increases, I would go down and help a customer and sell them a pair of skis with like Look Pivot 15s on them, check them out, and it was like $1,400. And I would be like afraid to say the number because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. But now when I go to the factory store and I check someone out, I'm like, that's a good deal. Like, like just of all the other bills I've had to pay, you know, like, they're like, you get a screaming deal here, you know, and that's just how the world is now. It's super messed up. Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, it's
It is
so
crazy.
weird. Yeah, but
I like to check in every so often to see from ski builders' point of views. I know that there is a pretty constant sense of like, what are the new materials out there? And it's not linear, right? There might be certain jumps at certain points of times in materials. Where are we, in your view, right now? Is it a bit more stagnant than it's been? Is it more iterative than revolutionary? Where are we in terms of what you guys see? And you have maybe suppliers coming through and saying, you should check out this new, and you're like, wow, that's really interesting, or not so much. Where are we today on that front?
You want to start? You want me to start?
The floor is yours. I guess I'll start though. You know, it feels like we're at the early stages of some big change. You know, I think that when people are looking at sustainability, for instance, you know, there's a desire to find more sustainable materials, a more sustainable way to make skis. You know, is the solution there yet? I don't think it is. You know, like there's some little things you can do or whatever, but I think that focus is gonna make some big changes. I don't know what this timeline is, but I think that'll be an interesting piece. But truly, like when you look at just making a ski anywhere in the world, it's pretty consistent, you know? So the materials that people are using, the processes, you know, it's getting more automated, but you know, for us, so much of it is like continuing to look at what's out there, you know, stay true to who we are, and continue to evolve our current process. And that's the other thing too, is like the challenges of taking some of these, you know, radical potential ideas, but systemizing it into a place to get it to a production level, you know? So, you know, I think for us, like the focusing on simplicity, you know, I think is such a key piece for us right now, of like simplifying what we're offering to the customer. And, you know, when you look at the amount of decisions or options out there from all the other brands, even just our if you're looking just at, what does Icelantic have?
Yeah, a lot.
What do I want, you know? So like, for me, I'm like, you know, efficiency is one of the key pieces. Like, boil it down, you know, what are the core pieces, like what are the core models that we want to offer? Then having some offshoot creative outlets, you know, that we're playing with, you know, radical materials that aren't, you know, confined as much by the price. You know, this isn't the mass market type of ski. It's not what we're offering everywhere, but I'm kind of rambling right now. But, you know, just really kind of like continuing to lean into it. And I think the direction is there. And I think with just the creative thinkers, not only in this industry, but in the world, like, there's going to be some pretty good leaps. I don't know exactly what that timeline is.
Yeah, I mean, the sustainability thing, it's definitely what you see being pushed from all outdoor brands. It's an important marketing story. We all care about the outside. We like to be there. But it is incredibly challenging skis get so abused, and they get flexed and bent, and they run in the rocks, and you pay a lot of money for them, and you want them to hold up. And the challenging thing with new materials, like skiing is just a small sector of composites and resins and epoxies and plastics and all these different parts that go into it, into a much bigger economic world of all those elements. So I don't know if, I think that trying new things and trying to bring sustainability into skiing and manufacturing is great, but I don't think the answers are going to be found in ski manufacturing. It's going to be from some bigger industry that we utilize components of. I mean, there's a lot of really cool companies out there that are trying things, like you were bringing up, you know, Wonder Alpine and Sturbins and Checker Spot. They're doing cool things, trying really cool stuff, but like, I don't know the exact number, but a good percentage of the algae is 50% of it's like bad stuff still. You know, they're blending it. And there's a lot of cool materials that get brought to us, and they don't work by themselves. They always need to be blended with the bad stuff. And so because they need to hold up, there's no easy answer. On the moment side of things, you know, what we want to do and what we look to do is we try to optimize our manufacturing to reduce waste. Be really particular about making certain parts that go into skis universal, so we can order a part that is perfect almost from the raw material supplier and cut it with little waste, versus making different parts and throwing a lot in the trash or trying to recycle certain things. Because, you know, the whole recycling world, I mean, it's super challenging to recycle some of these materials. Even though they are recyclable, there just aren't people that do it, or you have to pay more to get it recycled than you do to throw it away. So it's challenging as like just an economic world thing, you know? So it's difficult. I mean, it's just outdoor people push for it. It's important. But I don't know if we're gonna have the answers. It'd be cool if we did, but we gotta push and try for sure.
Is this to say that on the materials front, the primary thing is materials that still hold up, work well, that are more sustainable? I don't hear either of you talking a lot about, I don't hear either of you saying there's these new materials and we're gonna get this incredible performance gain. And this gets into something we've talked a lot about at Blister, is kind of sustainability is performance, but we're just talking about when I'm standing at the top of the head wall and I'm gonna ski down, you know, that you're not seeing new materials right now where it's like, oh my God, I can do the thing that I say, don't trust when brands say this. Look, we can pull 400 grams out of a ski and it's gonna ski as well as a ski that weighs 400 grams more. That, you know, when we're talking about that type of performance thing, I don't hear you guys talking about that. You're talking about the more sustainable materials. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think trying to find these materials to at least be equal to the current performance, that's the challenge now, let alone surpassing it. You know, I think one of the biggest challenges, you know, that we've talked about internally is just like bonding, you know, like, yeah, you can get all these sustainable materials and then you pour a bunch of resin on it. You know what I mean? It's like, and then once all these materials are saturated in resin, how do you recycle it? You know what I mean? Like, it's a really tough thing. So like, I think some potential in the future is like thinking of different ways to get materials to bond in a way that can still create the characteristics of the flex and the, you know, rigidity and just all the different pieces for performance, but thinking differently than the traditional resin approach. You know, I don't have that expertise, you know, but I think that that's just how we need to start thinking about truly, you know, evolving this. Because even when you think about recycling a product or whatever, like, sure, we can grind up skis and make something else, but, you know, eventually it's turning to waste. It's every one of these steps, it's, you know, reducing the quality of whatever you're making. So eventually it turns into waste. Where is there an opportunity to build something that can be potentially broken down with zero waste, or rebuilt in a way to keep it, you know, the cradle to cradle approach. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's that type of approach or thinking that I think needs to happen to really make change. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do with some, you know, green pieces and, you know, and I mean, a lot of it's marketing, you know, it's like, it's not going to really enhance the performance or the piece, but I just want to see, you know, a true change, you know? And I don't know if we'll get to there or not, but we may.
Yeah. I don't know, there is an epoxy company in Europe that is working with our top sheet supplier and a major European manufacturer, where they can build the ski and then they can pour a chemical on it and all the parts come.
Wow.
Like, kind of like
See, I haven't gotten that memo.
But I don't know how durable that ski is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, sustainability, we kind of went off on that tangent, but as far as new materials go, like, there's nothing revolutionary, right? Like, there's marketing copy, there's certain brands that will say something is there. But really, it's how you blend the materials and how you utilize them, and trying different things and not trying the same old thing that we've done for a long time, is really what we look to, and just try to optimize the use of the materials. We've been doing this for 20 years, which is a decent amount of time, but every year we learn something new on how to use these materials and how to lay them up. And the smallest changes that you put into a ski can change so much on how it feels to the skier, right? And skiing style changes, and snow changes, and different attributes are more popular and come and go as fads, right? So how do we utilize that in the ski? But no crazy new materials.
No crazy new
No.
materials.
No.
I want to open it up. If you guys have questions,
I have a kind of interesting one. So I have a thing for just like abusing the shit out of my skis.
Awesome.
And course shots are unfortunately like a thing. In sort of like a blue sky or like dreamland kind of world, do you think it would be possible to make a ski that is immune to course shot damage? Would you be making it out of like diamonds or just like a sheet of metal?
Talk
or
about
is
a
that,
caustic grease.
or is that or is that just like the nature of, to get a performance from a ski, you inherently have that weakness?
Well, you got to think about how much force you're putting into the ski. Like, let's say we just put a sheet of hardened steel on the bottom of your ski, and you sent even a 10-foot cliff onto a rock. Like, that steel is going to get damaged. And then it's going to cause crazy drag, and it's going to be slow. It's not going to absorb any wax. It depends, that durability versus performance, right, on how to manufacture it. Like, it would be cool. We've thought about making park skis with replaceable edges, and how to do that in a cost-effective level, and making it an affordable park ski. Because edges crack, and then things happen, and the ski starts to delaminate, and the kid's like, "This is a warranty," and it's like, "No, it's not." Yeah, but yeah. So
I know, yeah. A while ago, I was working with a kid at School of Mines in Golden, and he was working on, this was over 10 years ago, but we were doing cryogenically frozen edges to prevent that. And he was testing on razors, that type of stuff, and we could test the edge where it'd be but it was getting too hard where you couldn't even sharpen it. So it was we have this frozen, this cryogenically frozen edge, but the steel was too hard. So what you had to do to actually sharpen it to the point to utilize it was too much. So I don't know. We do warranty everything, so if you want to get some Icelantic 3-year warranty, no questions asked.
This question's not as good as the last question, but I thought all the discussion about pricing was really interesting, because there are parts of the ski industry which don't hesitate to raise their prices to meet input costs. And I don't think the costs of, the amount they're paying instructors at Vail or Jackson Hole have increased by the amount that they've raised their lesson prices every year. So why is it that gear and, gear brands who skiers presumably are more favourably inclined to than they are to Vail and Alterra don't have that pricing control, when other parts of the industry don't seem to have that problem?
I don't know. It's really looking at the competition landscape too. When you look at a lot of our competitors, they're either publicly traded companies or, government subsidized factories, or the stuff where they're not quite as dependent on the margin to create a sustainable product, so they can make a little bit less, or keep a traditional price.
Yeah.
And it's the challenge of how do we continue to show the value of investing in Icelantic versus XYZ brand. It's tough, we've gotten a little bit above, a lot of the core competitors that we have right now, but we can't alienate ourselves too much. So it's kind of looking at the overall market. I really do a lot of price strategy and just kind of look across the board, and sure, there's the very introductory type skis that are always going to be cheap, but really when you look at the core models that we're competing against, it's pretty amazing how much they have it. And truly, even going into next year, some of them are coming back in price, where it's and they're going for that mass market, approach compared to higher margins, more of the quantity approach. So it's a tough industry to compete against. So it's kind of all of those factors that help find a fair price. one thing that we do have an advantage of is kind of that balance of, selling our skis through wholesale outlets as well as, direct to consumer. So, that's one little thing is like, okay, we can keep our price competitive, but we need to shift some of our focus to get more of our sales going direct to us, where it's a little bit higher margin compared to going to a wholesaler where, we have built our pricing strategies around. So there's that to play as well, but it's really just a competitive industry that we're a small fish for sure.
If you could design one ski that you don't make or doesn't exist yet, what would it be?
The one with the diamond bases.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a cool one.
I'm thinking about that one now.
Yeah, but core shots aren't that bad to fix. The rail kits are way more annoying. I fixed the edge problem first. But yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, I have the ski that I love.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd make. Maybe just some sort of a fusion new type of construction that, could be broken down without any waste and then kind of rebuilt in a way. But in terms of a shape, I don't know. I love our shaman. What about you?
It evolves with time. I don't know. There's not like one thing that I have in my mind that like can't be done. Like if it's something that I want to make, we're working on it. I don't think there's anything that's in our wheelhouse that we've thought of yet that is like maybe impossible. As fun as that question is, I want to think about that more. But yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, my name's Ganhi. I have two sides of the same question. Similar to that guy, what is the limiting factor that keeps you from making or designing the ski that you want? Is it materials, automation, manufacturing process, design technology? What is it? And on the other side, what do you think the big change in the industry from skis is going to be? Because we've kind of had this convergence where every ski brand, whether it's a big brand or a ski brand, has their free ride ski, freestyle ride, and it's kind of the same. And what's that next version of like shape skis from like straight skis or like rocker, right? Like what's that next thing?
I think one of the beauties about both of our businesses that we can kind of create the shapes that we want to make. We don't have too many outside factors coming in and be like, oh no, that's too creative, that's too crazy to think about. So, I think just the skis that we're continuing to design and put out to the market are kind of those creative shapes that we want to create. What was the second part of the question?
What's the limiting factor?
Or next shapes.
Oh, next shapes, one of the shape concepts that I've been intrigued with, and it is kind of out there, but just continuing to play with full rocker. I mean, we were just talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Just full rocker technology, just when you think about it, it's always for powder. And of course it creates flotation and it keeps it surfy, but really when you think about it, it's kind of just like a pre-flex ski. So we've played around with some shapes like that where the radius of the rocker is the same as the radius of the side cut. So it really just skis like a flexed ski. And so when you're skiing it flat, it's super nimble, but when you roll this thing on edge, you get full edge control and it can carve a turn. And we've been talking a lot, or I've been thinking a lot about like taking some of that technology and implementing into kids skis or like, more beginner style skis where it's like, it's so forgiving, but then it'll really teach someone how to use an edge. And I think it's a tough sell, because when people think about full rocker, it's like, no, I'm not a powder person, but that's something that I've been thinking about is like how to take that concept and apply it to more of a, of a mass market or normalized shape.
Yeah, I mean, full rocker's fun. You can utilize it in a lot of different spots, and it's cool. Shape is important, but I think on the topic of shape, like skiing had so many amazing advancements in the last 20 years with the twin tip and fat skis and rocker. Like things went super fat for so long and things got obnoxiously rockered.
Even side cut.
And side cut, yeah, I love the BBR.
Yes.
Like so many crazy things happen, and still every year we get so, and that's only been 20 years though.
Yeah.
Like we are still refining all those pieces because we went so fast and so quick, and people were just buying the biggest, most rocker thing ever, and there wasn't any thought to it. It was just bigger, badder, and so we're still refining things. I think it's a slow move. Like we definitely went through a really amazing renaissance of ski design. I don't think there's anything crazy revolutionary coming, but I think that every year that the brands play with all the different shapes and side cuts and rockers, like there's not a lot of people that are skiing skis over 120 underfoot anymore, unless they have like a super niche powder skier going to a K or something like that. I mean, I still have skis that big, and they're awesome. I'm not saying they're dead, but like you can have so much fun on a ski that's 115 underfoot, and it skis so much better than the skis that were 130 underfoot 15 years ago. So
It's also pretty amazing how much small tweaks make a big difference, So it's like instead of like completely rethinking about doing something totally different, it's like you take, we're in the process of redesigning our Nomad and Maiden collection. This is a ski that I was building in the garage 20 years ago. It's literally the same shape, the wrong widths, but the same shape. But we're continuing to make tweaks to it, and like you literally make small tweaks to these concepts that have developed over the last 20 years. And it's pretty amazing to see the performance change and just how it really applies to the different type of skiers out there, and just more fun.
The comment earlier was that the market dictates that two skis which use the same raw materials, same manufacturing process, but one might be incrementally wider than the other and only costs incrementally more to make, could be more than incrementally more expensive at market. It seems to me that's not something the market dictates to you, which is why we're interested in your products. Seems like you have more control over that. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I think for both of our brands, the fatter skis are kind of our baseline. That's what we're selling. That's what, the majority of our sales. So we kind of build our margin structure around those, which are the fatter skis, which the result of that is the narrower skis that we're doing, we are making less margin off of, because we're not trying to gouge the fat skis and then have this as the baseline. We're really basing it off what we're selling more of, and then it gets down to looking at the competition. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, when you're looking at a ski wall and you're looking at something 90 underfoot, and you have XYZ options, and this one's $200 or $300 more than this one, I don't know. Like, that's why I say the market
It sounds like you're saying that you right price the wider ski and sell the narrower ski at a bit of a discount.
Yeah.
Versus looking at it the other way around, which is a little bit of how it sounded earlier.
Yeah, no, we make our fatter skis are kind of the baseline that we have, and then the narrow skis, luckily we sell less of them, but we make less on them too, if that makes sense.
You guys have talked about some of the disadvantages to being small brands playing against big fish in the pond, like robots and publicly traded companies. Like, what do you each feel is like your silver bullet advantage, if you have to be optimistic for a second? Being a small brand, is on the brand side, is on the product side, etc.
It's on rapid prototyping and not being constrained by all these people that have an opinion on the ski. We don't need to make a ski for everybody in 50 different countries. We make skis for us, for skiers, for our friends, and for the consumers that we communicate with. We don't need to make generic skis, and that's a huge advantage and why I think, both love making skis and being able to connect with skiers and come here, because this is at the start of the whole thing. We made skis because we love skiing, and we're still skiers first and businessmen second.
Yep. Yeah, I would say the same. Yeah. Just the creativity, it's like just coming up with a concept and then bringing it to life quick. You know what I mean? Like that type of freedom is just, it keeps me alive, it keeps me going, I love it. So that's definitely the piece.
Yeah.
Good question.
First time caller, long time listener. Why do ski graphics matter? Why do you guys put so much effort into ski graphics? And why have you both primarily worked with one artist for the last 20 years to develop what we all know and recognize today?
We have a love-hate relationship with our college buddy.
For me, our artist Travis Parr, he's like a co-founder. We grew up together since we were 12, and he was going to art school, called him up, just said, hey, I'd love to, I'm starting the ski company, and do you want to create the graphics? And it is tough doing business with an artist sometimes, obviously, but it's fun, and I think there's substance behind what we create. I look out there and there's a lot of people putting, art on it, but handmade approach, just like really taking original paintings, put them on the skis, and just storytelling, like just inspiring, and just like the storytelling that we're going to do to complement the product, I think is super important, as well as a differentiator. There's no question about that. Like it's such a core differentiator as a brand for people to recognize, like, oh, Icelantic, like artwork, blah, 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 whatever it may be. But it's just who we are. I think it's a perfect example of kind of that creativity side. Like when we started, I mean, we would come up with an idea. He would literally create all original paintings, like on the canvas, like with the shape of the ski traced. He'd paint the logo on it, and then we'd photo and put it on it, And it's crazy to think about how that's kind of evolved over the years. But I think it's just an expression of our brand. It's who we truly are, and it's just another fun outlet to differentiate our product versus everything else out there.
Yeah, it's a little similar for us. I mean, growing up in the 80s, 90s with like more of like a rock and roll punk rock DIY culture, like that's what I was around. Like growing up, I was a ski racer. I did all that, and like I was on atomic beta carbs, which I call butt crack technology, if you guys remember those skis. And they looked like F1 race cars. And I had my friends with these custom painted Burton 7s that were so cool, and I was watching old Mac Dog production snowboard videos. I'm like, that's a revolution of twin tips and all that stuff. Like none of it was speaking to me, and the major European brands had no idea what we were doing in Tahoe. And like, I just like beyond having a ski shape, like I wanted a brand that represented my core values and the things that I like, and bringing cultures of, hey, what are we gonna do for a ski graphic? Let's put mountains on them. Where did you come up with that idea? Jesus Christ. Like, let's do something cool. Like, we just like to have fun with it, and it's just the culture that we came up with, and we like to keep it punk rock.
It's also challenging too, because art is subjective. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
Love
it's
it or hate
totally
it.
something where it's like it can definitely be a polarizing factor. It can be a selling point, but also it can be polarizing. So that's been some of the challenge over the years of like, okay, how do we create this authentic artwork that we put on skis, but how do we continue to look at the type of customer that's gonna attract? It's a give and take.
Well, Ben and Luke, you're the best. Thank you for sharing the perspectives. It's a lot for us to think about and hopefully give us a better understanding of how this weird world works. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for staying for the B Squad.